Hello friends, welcome to Audiobook Library. Today we are going to talk about The Art of Risk by Richard Harris. Shubham was a common man living in a small town, engrossed in his work. Going to office every day, returning home in the evening and having some fun on weekends. This was his life. But somewhere he felt lost. There was a monotony in his life. One day, Shubham's eyes fell on a pile of books kept outside a bookstore. It was his habit that every time on the new year, he used to take some resolution to himself. And this time, he had decided that he would do something adventurous in his life. But he did not know how to bring adventure. He glanced at the books. The title of a book immediately attracted him. The Art of Risk. What we can learn from the world's leading risk takers. He picked up the book and started reading by flipping a few pages. After reading the first few pages, he decided that he had to buy this book. After buying the book, he sat comfortably in his room that evening. He switched off the TV and put the phone on silent mode. Shubham put the page on the top of the page and started reading the book. The title of the first chapter was Embrace Carefully Managed Risk. Shubham thought, what a boring topic this is. What is there to learn about risk? But still, he continued reading. Gradually, Harris's words started attracting him. The author had written that taking risk does not mean that you unnecessarily put your life in danger. Real risk takers are those who first analyze every risk. They think what could be the worst-case scenario and what steps can be taken to avoid it. Shubham suddenly remembered that once in his college days, his friends had invited him for bungee jumping. He did not go out of fear, but his friend Arjun went, and he later told that the bungee jumping company had already prepared all kinds of safety measures. At that time, Shubham thought that Arjun was crazy, but now he understood that Arjun was not a rake. He had taken a calculated risk. Shubham realized this while reading the book. It seemed as if Harris was talking to him directly. He was saying, Shubham, you never take any risk in your life. You always stay in the comfort zone. But have you ever thought that if you start taking calculated risks, how much your life can change? He continued reading. There was a story in the book about a mountaineer who had prepared to climb Mount Everest. He trained for years, prepared his body for extreme conditions, and assessed his decisions at every step. He took a risk, but that risk was planned. This was the reason why he succeeded. Shubham closed the book and thought, can I also do something like this in my life? He closed his eyes and asked himself, what is the biggest fear that he always avoids? The answer came immediately. Failure. I avoid everything because I am afraid that I will fail. But Harris is saying that instead of being afraid of failure, I should analyze it. I should think what can be the worst-case scenario if I prepare myself for it. If I take a risk, maybe I will win. He decided at that very moment that he would take a small but meaningful risk in his life. But which one? He took out his diary and started making a list of things that he always wanted to do but could never do due to fear. The first thing he wrote was to start his own business. Shubham was always fond of photography and thought that if he became a freelance photographer, his creativity would get a new flight. But then a question would come to his mind. What if I don't get clients? What if I fail? What if I am not able to earn money? But this time, Shubham did something different. He wrote at the bottom of his list, what the worst that could happen. He wrote his worst fears. 1. I will not get clients. 2. I will have to struggle financially. 3. People will make fun of me. And then he started addressing each fear. He thought, if I don't get clients, then I can do free shoots for my friends and family in the beginning. This will create my portfolio. If there is financial struggle, then I can do a part-time job. And if people make fun of me, then let them do it. My life is for them. The things that were only in his thoughts till now started turning into actions for the first time. The next day, he bought a decent camera from his savings. He was a little scared, but Harris's words were motivating him. Confidence comes from preparation. He went to a small garden in his city and started practicing. He took nature shots, took candid photos of children, and gradually he felt that photography was his calling. A few weeks later, it was one of his friend's wedding. The friend casually asked Shubham, our wedding photographer, refused at the last minute. "Can you take some pictures of us?" Shubham thought for a moment to refuse, but then he remembered the first lesson of Harris's book. Manage risk carefully and accept it. He told himself, "I have prepared. What is the worst-case scenario? If the photos don't come out well, these people will shout at me, but at least I will get a chance to learn." Music. If you like our free summary, you can subscribe to our channel, buy our membership, or support us through UPI. Now, coming back to the summary, he said yes and photographed the entire wedding. When he edited the photos and sent them to his friend, his response was expected. His friend said, "Shubham, this is amazing. You have left the professionals behind." That day, Shubham realized that taking a risk does not mean putting your life in danger. It means facing your fear and overcoming it with planning and preparation. The story does not end here. This was just the beginning. Shubham now had many new questions and dreams in his mind, and the next chapter of the book was going to inspire him even more. For Shubham, that book was no longer just a book. It had become a companion that was guiding him for every new step. The confidence he got from the first lesson had filled his life with a new energy. Now he was excited to turn the new pages of that book every day. One evening, when Shubham opened the book after having dinner, his eyes fell on the second lesson, the importance of resilience. He started reading the first paragraph of the chapter in which Harris had written that every human being should face challenges in life. By doing this, a person's mental and emotional strength increases. Shubham thought a bit. He felt that this lesson might not be that relatable to him. After all, what was the need of resilience for him? But then he started reading the chapter deeply. Harris had written that resilience is useful not only in difficult times, but also in everyday life. When we fail repeatedly and still stand up, then real strength is born. Shubham asked himself, "Is there any such challenge in my life that I have tried to face and failed?" He immediately remembered an old incident. During his college days, he had participated in a debate competition. He was fully confident about his words, but when he reached the stage, his legs started trembling, his voice started faltering, and he forgot his entire speech. Since then, he never tried public speaking. He felt that he was not made for it, but now this book had changed his thinking a bit. He read that instead of running away from failures, we should try to learn from them. This increases our confidence. Harris had shared the story of a mountaineer who tried to climb the heights many times, but failed again and again. After falling every time, he stood up stronger and finally fulfilled his dream of reaching the peak. Shubham thought that if he can do this, then why can't I? He wrote in his diary that he wants to become good at public speaking. He wants to take a new challenge every week. The next day there was a meeting in the office. Shubham always tried not to be seen by the boss, so that he does not have to say anything. But this time he challenged himself. When the boss asked who will give the update of his team, Shubham slowly raised his hand. Everyone was shocked to see him. Shubham himself was a bit nervous. His hands were drenched with sweat. But he thought in his mind that Harris had said to face the fear. If I fail today, I will do better next time. He started putting his point. In the beginning, his voice was slow, but gradually he became confident. When he finished, the boss smiled and said, "Good job, Shubham. That was clear and clear." That day, he realized for the first time that the fear of failure is often more in our imagination. In fact, when we allow ourselves to face that fear, it does not seem so difficult. In the book, Harris had described Regis as a muscle. If you use it again and again, it will become stronger. Shubham had understood this analogy from his heart. He started giving himself small challenges. One day his friend Arjun invited him for trekking. Shubham was afraid of heights. At first, he wanted to refuse. But then he remembered Harris's words. Comfort zones make us weak. Go out and recognize your strength. Shubham decided to go trekking with Arjun. The path of the track was not easy. Somewhere there was a steep climb, and somewhere there was a narrow path filled with stones. At one place, his fear started to subside. His legs were trembling and he felt that he would fall. But then Arjun explained to him, "See, if you are afraid of falling, then just focus on each step. Don't look at the full height, just focus on the next step." Hearing this, Shubham started climbing slowly. His fear decreased with every step. When he reached the top and saw the view all around, he felt as if he had achieved the height of his life. He has left the fear behind. While returning from the track, he realized that resilience does not only mean physical strength, but also mental strength. If he had given up midway, he would never have been able to see that beautiful view. Now Shubham's thinking had changed. He started looking at every small or big challenge as an opportunity. He started taking his photography more seriously. Some people praised his work, while some criticized him. Earlier, he used to get upset with criticism, but now he considered it an opportunity to learn. After a few months, a big photography contest took place. Shubham thought that this could be a great opportunity for him, but famous photographers were participating in the competition. He felt that he might not be able to stand in front of them. But then he remembered the second lesson of Harris's book. The worst thing would be that my name would not come in the list, but whatever I learn will take me further. Shubham sent his best photo. When the result came, his name was not in the list of winners. He was a little disappointed, but instead of giving up, he asked for the feedback of the judges of that competition. When he got the feedback, he saw that his photos needed improvement in lighting and composition. He started working on those things from that day itself. He practiced every day. He started photographing small local fans and tried to improve every time. This lesson from the book had now become a part of his life. He realized that resilience is not only important for big failures, but also for small everyday challenges. The story had now reached a point where Shubham was trying to become a better version every day, but the rest of the lessons from Harris's book were also going to teach him something else. It was as if a new chapter had opened in Shubham's life. Every day he would explore himself a little more. Every time he had to face a difficulty, he would remember some lesson from the book and try to learn from it. Now that book was not just a guide for him, but had become a friend. One evening, when it was raining while returning from office, Shubham thought that today he would read the third lesson of the book. After reaching home, he made hot tea and sat in a corner of his favorite place. He read the third lesson of the book, started reading, understanding the line between recklessness and courage. In the first paragraph itself, Harris had asked a question. Have you ever thought that? What are those things in your life that you do without thinking? And what are those things that you never get the courage to do? Because of fear. Shubham found this question very interesting. He asked himself, have I ever been a reckless? Or am I always so conscious that I do not give a chance to show courage? Harris had written that there is a very fine line between courage and recklessness. Many times we consider the actions of others as reckless, whereas for them, they are calculated risks. It all depends on the mindset and preparation of the person. Shubham suddenly remembered his friend Arjun. Arjun was the one who insisted on taking him for trekking. Arjun often used to do high-risk adventures like paragliding, skydiving, scuba diving. Shubham always felt that Arjun unnecessarily puts his life in danger, but now he realized that maybe Arjun was not a reckless, but he was courageous. Asli was exploring his boundaries. This thought forced Shubham to change his actions. He thought that I consider the courage of others to be a gimmick to cover up my fears. But the truth is that I myself never try to push my limits. Shubham spent the next few days in introspection. He made 2 columns in his diary. The first column was named Things I Avoid Because of Fear, and the second was Things I Do Without Thinking. In the first column, he wrote 1 Heights 2, Public Speaking 3, Starting My Own Business. In the second column, he wrote 1 Taking Impulsive Decisions Every Time. 2. Sometimes Spending Money Without Thinking. 3. Doing some things just because other people are doing it. Shubham saw that a large part of his life was either being driven by fear or by taking decisions without thinking. He was neither taking calculated risks nor courage. Astley was exploring his life. In the book, Harris had shared a story of a stunt pilot. That pilot used to do stunts every day. He used to put his life in danger every day. But before every stunt, he used to analyze his meticulousness and emergency landing options. People used to think that his stunts were reckless, but in reality, he had already calculated everything. Shubham understood a lot from this story. He thought that he too will have to understand the difference between courage and recklessness in his life. He will have to explore his boundaries. But with complete planning, he got the first chance to turn this thought into action that very week. His team in the office was asked to work on a new project. There was an opportunity to become the lead of the project, but there was a lot of risk in it too. If the project failed, the whole team would suffer. Shubham first thought that this work should be given to someone else, but then he said to himself, "Is this fear holding me back? Am I considering this a reckless decision when it could be a calculated risk?" This time, he decided to become the project lead. He did the complete planning with his team, assessed every small and big risk, and when the project started, his hard work was clearly visible. In the beginning, many challenges came. Some people did not agree with his decision, but Shubham took every feedback seriously and adjusted things. Finally, the project was completed on time, and the company also made a good profit. That day, Shubham learned that courage does not only mean taking big risks. It means understanding your fear, recognizing your strength, and taking an effective decision. But the story did not end here. One day Arjun called him again. This time, the plan was skydiving. Shubham's heart started beating fast. The fear of heights was still inside him, but this time, he was not going to back down. He asked Arjun, "What do you think while skydiving? Are you not afraid?" Arjun said smilingly, "I am afraid, but I check my preparation every time before boarding the plane. I know that if I have followed all the safety measures, then nothing will go wrong." Shubham thought, "Can I do this? Can I face my fear?" He decided that he would do diving, but with full preparation and information. First, he took the details of that company and checked their safety records. He talked to the instructor and said yes only when he was sure that it was a calculated risk. When the time came to jump from the plane, his heart was beating very fast, but as soon as he felt himself in the air, that fear disappeared. He was just living that moment. After landing, he realized that he had completely left his comfort zone behind. That day, he understood the real meaning of Harris's third lesson. The difference between courage and recklessness is only in the mindset. If we understand our limits, face our fears, and take steps with complete planning, then every challenge becomes an adventure. Now Shubham's eyes were on the fourth lesson of the book. He felt that every chapter was introducing him to a new aspect of his life, and he was fully prepared for it. Shubham was now completely engaged in implementing the lessons of this book in his life. Every new chapter made him feel as if this book was written especially for him. He had learned how to build resilience through courage and recklessness. What is the difference between the two? And now it was the turn of the next lesson, learning from failure. He opened the next page of the book and started reading. Harris had written, "Failure is the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone towards it. If you're not failing, okay, You're probably not challenging yourself enough. Reading these lines put Shubham in deep thought. He asked himself, do I consider my failures as stepping stones, or do I try to run away from them? First of all, memories of the old debate competition came to his mind when his defeat had broken him so much that he never tried to step on the stage again. And then he remembered the photography competition, where after losing, he took feedback and improved his skills. Harris had written that instead of running away from failure, we should try to learn from it. Every setback is meant to teach us something. The biggest risk takers have improved their skills from their failures. Shubham thought that he should start learning from his failures. He picked up his diary and wrote, "A failure debate. Loss in the competition. Lesson learned how to deal with lack of preparation and nervousness." 2 failures. First, losing a photography competition. Lesson learned, improving lighting and composition. He thought that whenever there is a failure, it should not be seen as just a defeat, but as an experience. After a few days, there was a big presentation in the office. Shubham was given the responsibility of preparing and delivering it. He first made slides with a lot of hard work and organized his points. But on the day of presentation, there was some problem in the projector, and half of the slides were not displayed properly. This disturbed Shubham's rhythm, and his confidence also got shaken. After the presentation, the boss praised his efforts, but due to some points being missed, the project did not get immediate approval. Shubham felt very bad. He felt that he had let his team down. But then he remembered the lesson from the book. Analyze your failure. There is always something to learn. He asked himself, where did he go wrong? He had not paid attention to the real aspects. If he had tested the projector first, this problem would not have occurred. He immediately made a note that next time whenever there is any presentation, first check the tech setup and always have a backup plan. This small failure had taught him a big lesson. He decided that he will not ignore his mistakes now, but will consider them as an opportunity to improve. In the book, Harris had written the story of a mountain climber. That climber once tried to climb a high peak without proper planning and fell down. After that accident, he never gave up. He focused on his planning and gear and changed his strategy. After a few months, he climbed the same peak and succeeded. Harris had written that failure does not define you. How you respond to it does. This thing touched Shubham deeply. He thought that if that climber had given up, would he ever have been able to climb that peak? Shubham started looking at his photography from this perspective. He started putting his pictures in local exhibitions. In an exhibition, a person criticized his picture and said that this composition, it is a bit weak. The background is distracting a lot. At first, Shubham felt a bit bad, but then he took that criticism positively. The next week, he worked only on composition. He failed many times, but every time he learned something new from it. Gradually, his pictures started getting better. Music. One day, Arjun came to him again. This time, he asked Shubham to participate in a cycling marathon. The route was 100 kilometers, and Shubham did not have much experience in cycling. He was afraid that he might not be able to complete this challenge. But he thought that if I fail, at least I will know my limits, and I will be able to do better next time. He decided to participate in the marathon. The route was quite difficult. In the middle, Shubham felt that he might not be able to reach the finish line. But he told himself that this is not a failure. It is a process. Every pedal is making me stronger. He could not complete the marathon, but he covered a distance of 75 kilometers. His knees were paining, but his heart was full of pride. He told Arjun that even though I did not reach the finish line today, but I will definitely reach next time. Today, I learned that my endurance needs to be improved. Harris had written in the book, the most successful people aren't afraid to fail. They are afraid of not trying at all. This thing settled in Shubham's heart. He decided that he would consider every failure as an opportunity to become better. After a few months, he joined a big photography competition again. This time his pictures were admired, but Shubham knew that this victory was possible only because of his failures. If he had given up, he might not have been able to reach here. Shubham's story had now reached a point where failure was not his fear, but had become his mentor. But there were many more lessons in Harris's book, and Shubham knew that he was going to learn something new from each one. Now, in Shubham's life, the book The Art of Risk was not only a means of study, but had become a life-changing guide for him. Every new lesson gave him an opportunity to understand and improve some part of his life. Now he was moving on to the next chapter of the book. The chapter began with a line that struck Shubham's heart. No one succeeds alone. Behind every great adventurer and risk-taker is a strong community that lifts them up. Shubham took a deep breath and wondered, do I have such a community in my life? Do I have people who support me from whom I can learn? In the book, Harris shared stories of many risk-takers who not only helped others by sharing their experiences, but also improved themselves. One of those stories was of a rock climber who always climbed alone. But once he saw that a fellow climber who was less experienced was improving by watching him. They climbed together and, learning from each other, succeeded in climbing a big or small peak. Shubham found this story very relatable. He realized that he always tries to face his challenges alone, whether it is an office problem, a photography project, or the fear of any other aspect of life. He realized that maybe he could help others. That day, he decided that now he will try to connect with the people around him. He started participating more actively in his photography group. There, he met many new people who had different perspectives and techniques. One day, that group planned an outdoor photography trip. It was to go to an urban village where the play of light and shadow was quite challenging. At first, Shubham thought that he would go on this trip alone and click his pictures. But he told himself that if I stay with others, then perhaps I will get to learn something new. After reaching there, Shubham saw that every photographer had his own different method. Some were focusing on composition, while some were taking only black and white shots. Shubham talked to them and observed their techniques. He felt that working with them could improve his own thinking and photography style. That day, a senior photographer gave him a small advice. Sometimes the imperfection in a picture makes it special. Don't run after symmetry or perfection every time. Hearing this, a new idea came to Shubham's mind. Perspective came. He clicked some imperfect but powerful pictures that day, which were later appreciated. Harris had written in the book, "A community is just a safety net. It is a source of inspiration and growth." This line was echoing in Shubham's mind again and again. He realized that not only professional community, but personal support system is also important in his life. He started spending more time with his friends. He openly talked about his fears and failures with Arjun. Arjun told him about some of his failures and said, "Shubham, you know I am also not successful every time. But when I have the support of my friends, every failure hurts me less." Shubham thought that he always tried to solve his problems alone, but maybe it was time to include others in his life. After some time, a new project came in the office. It was a collaborative project in which many departments had to work together. Shubham was made a part of the team. Earlier, he was a little hesitant because he was often used to working solo, but this time he consciously included others in the team. He tried to mingle with others. He realized that everyone had brought their own strengths. Some were good in numbers, some in creative ideas. Shubham saw that working with the team not only made his work easier, but he also got a chance to work on his weaknesses. After the project was over, the boss called Shubham and said that this time our project went so smoothly because of teamwork. "Shubham, you played an important role in keeping the team together." He realized that working alone would not have made him so productive and impactful. Harris had said another important thing in the book: shared experiences create strong bonds. Shubham decided to apply it in his life. He started weekend treks with Arjun. More people also started joining them. On every trek, some new problem would come up, which they would solve together. Once they got stuck on a difficult path, It had started raining and they did not know how to decide the way forward. Arjun called everyone and decided the way forward with the team. Shubham learned that when people come together, any problem can be solved. It can be extracted. Gradually, a big change started coming in Shubham's life. He felt that he was now feeling more confident, open, and connected. One day when he was sitting with his photography group, someone asked him, "Shubham, why is there a different depth in your photography now?" Shubham replied with a smile, "Because now I do not learn alone. I learn with others. Their stories, their experiences are reflected in my pictures." That day, he understood the real meaning of this lesson of Harris. Community is not just a support system. It is a mirror that shows us our real potential. Now Shubham was ready to read the next lesson. He knew that this book would show him a new direction every time and make his life better. Shubham's life had now completely changed. With every new day, he felt better and stronger. Every lesson of the book, The Art of Risk, was bringing new light in his life. Harris's next lesson. The value of community and shared experience gave more depth to his thinking. Shubham felt that every time he connected with others, when he listens to their stories or learns from their experiences, he finds himself richer and more capable. The challenges that seemed like mountains to him earlier now turned out to be mere stepping stones in the way. After that trip of the photography group, he always tried to work together with others. Now he looked at every project and every challenge as a shared experience. He learned that in a team, everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and when people combine their strengths, even impossible tasks become possible. There was a big presentation in the office. This time, Shubham was not alone. He talked to his colleagues beforehand, took feedback, and prepared every aspect of the presentation, together with the team. When the presentation was over, Shubham not only received praise for his work, but also the entire team. He realized that the impact of a whole team is much greater than that of a single person. The effect of this change was visible in Shubham's personal life as well. Weekend treks with Arjun were now deepening their friendship. On every trek, they would solve small and big problems together. Once when a team member met him, when a new member joined who was trekking for the first time, Arjun and Shubham helped him by showing him the way and giving him courage. That day, Shubham realized that not only learning but teaching and supporting others is equally important. Harris had written that shared experiences create not just memories, but lessons that last a lifetime. Shubham had now fully understood these words. One day, when Shubham was thinking about his old days, he remembered how lonely he used to feel earlier. He used to try to solve every problem alone. He kept every fear to himself. But now he had a community in his life, whether it was his office colleagues or members of the photography group, or a true friend like Arjun. He thought that if I had never given these people a chance to come into my life, then perhaps I would still be standing there, confused, scared, and isolated. Shubham made this lesson from Harris's book an important part of his life. He decided that now he would move forward, not just for himself, but with the people around him. He learned that community does not mean only taking support, but also giving support to others. Now Shubham was very different from the person who opened the first page of The Art of Risk, but he knew that this journey was not over yet. There were more lessons in Harris's book, and Shubham was ready to adopt all of them in his life. The story does not end here because these learnings will keep making him better at every new step in Shubham's life, in every new experience, and in every new relationship. So friends, this was our book summary today. Do let us know how you liked it by commenting.